Hello class, and here we are in the second lesson of the book. We're going to be discussing this week, we're going to be discussing first language acquisition. We're going to be discussing first language acquisition, and in this chapter you're going to find a number of first language acquisition theories. There is a diagram in the chapter that summarizes just put some of the main bullets on the different theories that you're going to see: the behaviorist, the nativists, and the functional theories like the constructivist, social interaction, and such. So basically, in the behaviorism, you're going to have Skinner. I don't know if you remember or have studied Skinner's box at all, that kind of stuff. But responds to stimuli. So it basically looks at first language acquisition as something that is produced in those terms. And most of Skinner's studies were done with animals, and then he transfer some of that knowledge to first language acquisition in humans. The nativists, on the contrary, they're going to say that language is innate to all humans, that we're born pre-wired to speak versus other creatures in the planet. They're going to discuss things like universal grammar and the pivot grammar. Chomsky and many others, discuss these types of theories where they believe that we do have the behaviorist. They will think that our brain is tabula rasa. It's a clean slate. It's a clean slate that has nothing written on it in terms of language, like our brain. And then we acquire this through stimuli and such. And the nativists are like, no. The humans, we are pre-wired to speak and do things. And use language, and they're gonna analyze language from its form. This is when you're gonna read about the example of like mommy sock, and then it's like and several other pairs of languages, pairs of words, and how the first word in the pair refers to a particular group, and the second word in the pair refers to a particular group that cannot be combined, and it explains some things like that in terms of universal grammar and pivot grammar. And then more modern times we have the functionalist approaches. This is where that we're going to start investigating the relationship between cognition, the brain, cognition and language, how they influence each other. And we're going to also be talking about input and social interaction and language as a social tool. And these people, the functionalists, they're going to look at functions of language, not necessarily the form. So for instance, the same example of mommy sock, they're going to tell you, well, true, sure, there is a group of words that mommy is a part of, and there is a group of words that sock is a part of. But more importantly, what is the child trying to say, and what is he using in order to say that? Because mommy sock can be mommy owns the sock, mommy is putting on the sock, mommy look at the sock. So they're going to tell you, depending on the context, you're going to have different meanings, and this is what the children is trying to do with language. They're going to look at the function of language, not necessarily the form of language like the nativists were looking at. So that's really a very quick summary of the three, and there's names associated to these. Bloom, the same lady from Bloom's taxonomy, and as I said, Skinner, and things like that. So then the other part of the chapter is going to go through issues about first language acquisition that are important to consider. It's going to be, everything, all these issues do relate in some form or another to the theories that you will read in the first half of the chapter. For instance, we're going to, you need to discuss, when you're talking about first language acquisition, we need to make a distinction between competence and performance. We need to talk about comprehension and production. We're gonna, the eternal distinction of nature and nurture. Universals, issues of universals, like the universal grammar and such. Systematization versus variability. That one is very interesting for us with our students, because it talks about, language have a very clear process from one word to a pair of words to a sentence to, and the children do seem to acquire this complex thing called language naturally, step by step. However, we also know that there is an incredible variability of how we get to that complexity. So we need to differentiate between that systematization versus variability. Language and thought, language and cognition, as the nativists, as the functional theories speak about. Imitation from the parents, input from the parents, practice and frequency are issues related to first language acquisition. And then conversational and discourse analysis, which is a really modern branch of linguistics, analyzing discourse analysis. So anyway, and all this is important because it's sort of cool the way Brown finishes the chapter, because he says in most things in life, once you learn one thing, the second thing is usually easier. That's not the case with language. Every second language learner already knows a language, and somehow the second language is not as easy to learn as the first one. Why is that? He claims that looking and some of these issues related to first language acquisition are going to guide us and help us understand the complexity of learning a second language, which we're going to go in depth more in chapter 3, which we'll do in class, which is a chapter on children's learning first and second languages. So anyway, that's for second chapter for me. I think we'll have a good discussion. And as usual, just let me know if you have any questions. Bye.